I'm going to be running the meeting today since our chairman has had such a busy week. Like call to order. Carter, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Okay. All right, Mr. Diffenbach.
Here.
Mr. Tatum. Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Ms. Bullock. Yeah. Mr. Cardellino.
Yes.
Ms. Scott. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Chairman, we've got a forum with everyone here. But we don't complete them.
Would you like to? If you indicate, I'll let it up, right? Most principal and follow up before you conduct the business of your beautiful meeting candle. Thank you. When the mercy and grace that you give each one of us on any given day. Oh, thank you again. Come before you and serve the county servants to make it a better place to live. You just name it, pray on that. Let's. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone here today, especially our representative from the RC. We'll make presentation later at the meeting. The communications from citizens. Do you got anything you want to say? Move on to the approval of the minutes for December 14th. Why do we get a chance to go through them? A motion to accept it, submitted. Different body make the motion. Scott, with the second, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The minutes for January 11th, 2022. Did ask Brenda to make a slight adjustment on page 2. With in the second bullet point, the county administrative report. Robert J. Smith, purchase of land in the IDA park. And then the next sentence where I made the motion to go on a session for financial in there, so it doesn't look like the same person is doing all that work. But she was gonna do that on the copy. So with those adjustments, I would make a motion to accept.
That we accept the minutes.
Scott, need a second. Get a second. I'll check it. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. We have the exception of the treasury report. It's questions about that? I'll entertain a motion to accept the treasury report as submitted. I'll make that motion. Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, now we come to the old and new business. The representative here from the CRC presentation on the regional economic development.
Mr. Chairman, before Melanie gets started, the timing for the meeting, at 12 o'clock, there's supposed to be lunch in here.
Okay.
And that's going to be with the new board members who are undergoing some training over at the library. And after lunch, then we'll break into the orientation economic development for them. And there's enough food. Everybody's invited to lunch.
Just know the time.
Hope everybody can stay, but we're planning for 12 right here.
Training will be here too, 1 o'clock.
The training will be here.
Melody, I'd be happy to get you over here.
Or chair over here, or?
If I get you like that.
No, for inviting me to meetings at maybe to, I'm sorry, I was a few minutes late related to some construction traffic that's slowed me down a little bit. So, to talk about the endeavor of creating a new economic development organization. As many of you know, the Virginia Growth Alliance currently exists that could encompass Amelia County, and Amelia County was a member. What y'all pull out? Taylor?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And our Commonwealth Regional Council is one of 21 planning districts. I'm sure many of you are aware the planning districts cover all the regions of the state. And our planning district, for those of you who don't realize, cover the counties of Amelia, Buckingham, Charlotte, Cumberland, Lunenburg, Alabama, and Salem. So that's, what our footprint looks at. And this is not a creation where the council would be creating it, where my staff would be doing any of this. It's the creation of a brand new organization. Our members saw this as something they wanted explored, and we actually received a letter from Prince Edward County back in August of 2021 asking us to look into the creation of a new organization because the majority of the counties in our footprint were pulling out of Virginia's Growth Alliance, which is the current organization that does regional economic development. So we began by putting together a meeting in October. October 1st was our first meeting. And at that meeting, we really just did some facilitation of our members, and we invited county administrators and also town representatives just of our footprint, just to talk about, what their expectations were, what they liked, what they didn't like about the organization that they had left, or they still were current a member of. And then also to try to get more value in that meeting, Stephen Moray, who was the director of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is the state organization that oversees economic development, he actually volunteered to participate in this meeting. For those of you who might not be familiar with Stephen Moray, I was very impressed that he stepped up and did that. He also had some of his staff participate, and they came to the meeting prepared with some information. So we had his participation. And like I said, we had a facilitated conversation about what the needs were of the region for creating a new organization to see how this might move forward. Because we wanted it to be done in kind of an orderly fashion, that if you're going to create a new organization, don't just create the same thing you just left and put new money into it. What do you want to get out of this? So it helped to have, the perspective from the state, from Stephen Moray with VEDP. And then also the Commonwealth Regional Council has applied for funding through the Economic Development Organization, which is at the federal level. We're waiting for our designation to become an economic development district. We'll have funding that comes along with it. I say waiting. It's our understanding we should get that designation. It's just a process of going through getting that, designation. So we also had Lauren Stuhldreyer with EDA also participate in the meeting, just to let everyone know, if we were to move forward, could any of the EDA funds be used for this new organization? Because, the organization got to figure out how the funding's going to work. She did say that was a possibility. We could use some of those funding. So there was reasons why we had these folks participate. So that meeting was more about just discussing needs, expectations, things like that. So we had that meeting on October 1st. We decided we needed to have a follow-up meeting in November to come back and now invite successful regions who are already doing this, that are perceived, that are similar in nature to us, that are rural, that are not urban, to come talk about, how are you successful, and what are you, how is this possible? What does it look like? So we invited Brian David, who is the director of Go Virginia Region 3, that covers this region, to be our facilitator. And we had Linda Green with Southern Virginia Regional Alliance, Jay Langston with Shenandoah Valley Partnership, and Josh Lewis with Virginia's Industrial Advancement Alliance. And there was a facilitated conversation with them to try to have best practices and lessons learned about what made their region successful. And I would say one of the key takeaways from that meeting on something I don't think we really ever discussed before was the underuse of the fact that we have Longwood University, Hampton City College, and South Side Virginia Community College in their footprint. And that's pretty unique around the state to have three higher education in your region. So we were challenged after that by the group to put together an organizational structure of how this could look moving forward. So Brian David and then another staff that works with him, Liz Hobar, some of you might know her, she used to work for BDP, she's now a consultant, worked with me to put together a concept paper. And I'll say they did the majority of the work, I just provided input. They put together a concept paper and that's what I handed you. And that was actually presented at our last council meeting last month. And this was just provided to try to lay out the footprint on how this could be moving forward. But I would say one of the big standing points of this is we're going to go, and I say we, a small group from the Commonwealth Regional Council and Go Virginia are going to go and meet with President Reevely to see if Longwood is open to having a partnership with this new organization. So that's our next steps. You'll see in this concept paper, there are some funding. You know, we laid out a budget, of course, it's extremely rough, not knowing, you know, what it could be, but that was something that was asked. That's on the last page, on page 6. You know, it's estimated to be $200,000 to $250,000 for 3 years. I mean, obviously, if you try to support that just with membership fees, you know, that's not sustainable for this region. So that's why we want to possibly the partnership of Longwood, possibly the funds from EDA, and then also Go Virginia has stated they see a way that they probably could offer some funds, especially for startup. But this is just basically a concept paper that just lays out, you know, all of the different things. If you want to hear more about what was common and what was, you know, opportunities, things that were takeaways as well. One of the things that was talked about is opportunities, like I said, you know, bringing in Longwood, the fact that, you know, most of these localities are very similar. Look on page 3, operational considerations. You know, it lays out things that this new organization probably would want to do. You know, a typical function is business attraction, but this might want to be looked at a little differently because it's been done the same way repetitively before. And, you know, that might want to be looked at a little bit differently in this region, that you might want to focus more on business expansion and retention because many of our localities, again, are rural and may not have a whole lot of, you know, business and industry. So you might want to focus on that maybe a little bit more. Page 4, talking about business formation and business development. Again, maybe leaning on Longwood again because they have a small business development center. That might be something that could be offered through the college that could be a support staff there to help out with that as well. Site development, that was one that was talked about quite a bit that I think most of you realize in our region, you know, a lot needs to be done, you know, at the locality level to make site development, you know, a priority, that if you don't have anything out there to offer to business, there's nothing for them to come to. So you may have sites, but they need to be developed to a magnitude that a business can actually locate there. So maybe, you know, spending more resources on that. And in this region, many localities don't have local economic development staff. So one thing that could be a pro, again, is that this organization could offer some support services, you know, to localities to help out with that. One of the things we talked about, again, in organization is hopefully maybe having an affiliation with Longwood to either be the host organization or the Commonwealth Regional Council. Again, it wouldn't mean my staff would be doing anything per se as staffing, but if we could be the host organization, one of the things we possibly could be offering is if it came under our umbrella, we could offer, we're a Virginia retirement system participant. So that's something if it came under our umbrella that we could offer that maybe would entice staffing for the organization. So a couple of different ways that look at that. Lessons learned at the bottom of page 4. Again, this is where some of the other RDOs, regional development organizations around the state, already have partnerships with colleges. One of the ones that we looked into, James Madison University is a partner with an RDO in that area, and that seems to be pretty successful. We also talked about establishing it as a 501c3 or other variations of that to allow it to be able to do fundraising. I don't believe VGA has ever pursued that, and to my knowledge, even the organizations before that I'm familiar with, I think it's been tried a couple of times, but I don't think it's been very successful in doing private fundraising.
The new executive director, I guess he's interim, mentioned it at the last meeting I was at, that was going to be a component of what he was going to do. He was going to try to bring in some private sector money from local companies.
Yeah, we talked about how important that is because that's including the business sector so that they have buy-in, and then also it just brings another resource to the table that has not been present in the organizations recently. And like I said, the last page talks about budget considerations, trying to make it affordable and doable, and honestly make sure it has some longevity, that you're not putting all of the weight on a staff that you might hire to constantly be out looking for grant funds to fund their salary. There needs to be sustainability built into this new organization. So that's where we're at the moment. It's still in the burgeoning concept. One thing we talked about at our last meeting that's kind of great in a way, with a new governor coming in, and the VDP director just left. All of this is brand new, so you kind of have a good moment in space to be trying to create something new at the same time, because all of that is changing as well. So it's kind of a flux at the moment, so it gives you time to be deciding how to move forward and figuring out what your path is and not feel as rushed. What we talked about is each locality may want to put, everybody's going into their budget cycle, and everybody's already thinking, well, if you create something new, how much money should I put some money in my budget? What should that be? It's hard to say. Again, we threw out the number at one of our meetings of 50,000. I would agree. That sounds like a lot of money. And you're probably thinking, well, I wasn't even paying that while I was in VGA. Why the heck should I put that in my budget right now? It's just a placeholder. You've got to remember, when you create a new organization, there's startup costs and things like that. It doesn't hold any locality to anything. It doesn't mean you've agreed you're going to be a member. It's just a placeholder you might want to put in your budget to put towards economic development. You could put less, but I did want to explain where that cost came from. It really was just putting a number out there as a placeholder. I think the council itself will probably go back and discuss that again, because I've already gotten some feedback from some localities. Like, I don't know, that's a no-go, in my locality, to put that much forward of some, especially based on what we've pulled out of. So I don't think, that's imperative that you do that.
For everybody's information, the staff's draft budget that's currently under development has $25,000 in it for that. And there were a couple reasons. We thought that 50 was just more than what was going to be necessary to do the job, number one. But we didn't think that whatever came out would be hit the ground running on July the 1st. So we'd be well into the fiscal year before we needed any of the money anyway. So the draft budget at this time, which has not even been presented, but it does include 25 for this.
I think that you're exactly right. I don't think it's possible for it to hit the ground running July 1st. That's not true. But I think it's probably more realistic to say that. And like you said, I think every locality has to make their own judgment call. And maybe that's why we hit a higher number, that some may want to hit higher than others.
How did you come up with the 50,000? You think the number of
I'll
localities?
be honest, I didn't come up with that. One of the county administrators threw the number out. I'm like you, I probably would have taken the higher number and just divided by 7 right now just to see what that was. Honestly, it was just a number that was thrown out, and everybody kind of went yes, and it went from there. But like I said, and I was asked to send that out to all the county administrators, so I did that. But I immediately started getting feedback that, wow, that number's kind of high. So I think we probably will go back and discuss that again and be sending out some more correspondence on that.
And the first time I heard the 50 number, it was when Brian David and Liz Povar were actually presenting this, and they were the ones that had that. Now, where they came up with it, I don't know.
Yeah.
On something like, are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Something like this, who provides like the accountability on the performance of this RDO? Like,
It will
how-
have its own board of directors, so it'll be accountable to those board of directors.
Why did localities pull out of this similar organization years ago?
Well,
Amelia pulled out because we were late to the game. The VGA was originally put together for the counties in the Southside Planning District Commission, which are, I guess, Mecklenburg, Brunswick, Halifax.
that's it, there's just three.
Okay. And then they brought in Charlotte and Lunenburg as well. They were in the VGA. That footprint did not have higher education in it that the state officials wanted. They wanted something besides a community college. They seized on Longwood and Hampton, Sydney, and they said that's the area that we can check this box the quickest, the best. So they went to every county in the CRC and made a pitch for us to join. And we did, but it proved to be, I think, that the region was just too unwieldy for one person to manage.
It actually goes as far as Greensville.
Uh-huh. Mhm. It was just too unwieldy to be managed. And the demographics, it wouldn't be demographics, but the features of the area were so different. They had natural gas, interstate exchanges, 100-acre parks with pads all up and down the interstate 85. So that's where it seemed like most of the activity was taking place. And it was just hard to mix what every community up this way had. And we just didn't feel like we were getting any bang for the buck. So it was very amiable, I thought, pull out. We did it the way rules gave the notice and pulled out, and then several other communities followed it.
So on the Longwood side, can you just explain a little more like how that work, like the mechanics of it? Are we teaching people things like business and then trying to, like, how does it all work?
Well, what we're hoping, number one, is that Longwood, just the stature alone of having Longwood as a partner, will be extremely meaningful. Two, we're hoping that they can offer some support services, maybe even a location, like putting a staff member in one of their offices, hopefully maybe co-joining with the Longwood Small Development Center because they're similar, they can offer, Longwood Small Development Center could probably offer some support services on things that would be very viable for regional development. So that's one thing. Maybe not so much cash, because like I said, I think there's other things they bring to the table that are monetary in value that are not just cash. We could just see a lot of reasons why that would, be a good fit. I don't think it's too much on the educational side as far as teaching. Like I said, I think it's more on their small business development side, the services they already provide for that would be similar. And like I said, hopefully a location, an office location. My office in Farmville is pretty small and I don't really have the space. I could probably put one person in there, but if this organization grew any, I wouldn't really have any room. So I think they just thought this would be a good fit, visible wise too, because if you think about it, someone who is the director or the president of a regional development organization, I mean, some of it's show. You bring in a prospect, you want to bring them into an office, to have meetings and things like that. Longwood, that might be a really good fit. So that was, I think, part of the thinking. Sometimes too, there could be monetary, Longwood may see that, I do want to contribute to economic development in the region that, if the region's doing well, that's good for Longwood as well. So I think there's a lot of different variations. We're still putting together our plan of attack to meeting with the president to hopefully sell this idea as something. We sort of felt like that was one of our starting points because we need to know is Longwood on board or if they're not, because that's kind of how the whole thing might be structured. So, so far that seems very important to try to.
For what it's worth, I went to several things that I think was work at the state agency, but they held it long, they had an office there, and it did, I went because it was at
There you
the two
go.
meetings.
Some of it's just perception, you know.
So just a little bit more on like, what do they, when you say they're a small business prospect? And sorry for the laser questions here, but if we're gonna put some money in this, I want to know. Are they bringing students or is it other, or just people coming that want to do small business and then?
You mean the Small Business Development Center?
Yeah, for long.
Longwood Small Business Development Center, if you want to start up a business, they can help you put together a business plan. They offer all kinds of classes and things, especially for entrepreneurs who don't have any business experience, to help you learn about how to starting a business, and they do all of that free. I send people to them all the time that are interested in that.
So if we've got Longwood to go with this, we could.
Yeah, kind of.
Send people there to.
So that, yeah, that's one aspect of it.
Can we already send people there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we don't, does this only work if Longwood or Hampton, Sydney or Southside Virginia?
I would say no, but it was an interesting concept that just that evolved out of us meeting and bringing in these other regional organizations when we realized they were already doing that. It's like, hey, that's something we haven't thought about. And it could probably solve some problems that we wondered, how it move forward. I would say one thing, and I don't know, maybe Taylor can correct me on this, the current model for VGA just has one staff. And it has been that way for some time.
That's right.
And I believe the prior staff, Jeff Reed, I believe they have 12 counties total. And I always thought that was a daunting task, to be one staff who's expected to attract business prospects, answer cell phones, send out material, do all of these things with no support staff, do all of that. So I always thought that was really a tough job. So one of the things, without trying to put a whole lot of extra money into it, how could you get that support staff in there that maybe you don't need all the time, but you need some of the time. So I've always thought that was a little bit difficult.
That's what I'm kind of seeing with this though, because this would be 11 counties, right? It's 6 on, am I right? Maybe
No, our footprint is 7 counties.
7.
7
This
counties.
is still 7 counties for one person, seems like.
Yeah, well, that's where we're trying to use Longwood, maybe would be the support staff, that they might provide that as an in-kind, so that, for instance, if you need copies or you need materials produced, that you've got a support staff, and maybe even someone basically just to answer the phone, so you don't have to, send it to voicemail every time you want to talk to someone. We're hoping, that could be part of the package.
How about Hampton City?
We have not talked about approaching them yet, basically probably because they're private, and there's some advantages to Longwood being a public university. Definitely if Longwood's not interested, that might be the next step.
So you don't think we could get both of them to coordinate and work together?
I don't know. We hadn't really discussed that. I think, again, this is still a burgeoning concept, and the immediate thought was Longwood. I guess one of the reasons is the Commonwealth Regional Council, while it doesn't have membership of Longwood, Hampton Sydney, and SVCC, they kind of have a foot at the table. They're invited to all their meetings. And I'll say over time, Longwood, the most, has sent a representative more consistently. They're not there every month. Sherry McGuire is actually the representative from Longwood, and she's the Small Business Development Center director. And she attends pretty regularly. In fact, we work with her a lot on projects. Hampton Sydney currently doesn't have someone attending. The person who was retired. And Keith Harkins from Southside Virginia Community College was attending pretty regularly. I'll admit COVID kind of threw all of that, a kink. I hope all of that gets a little bit more consistent. But no, I wouldn't say the answer is no. I would just say at the moment we were more focused on Longwood.
Yes, that's, I run a business with Longwood and Hampton Sydney, two of the economic engines of Southside.
I would agree.
Ken Copeland has been involved with CRC matters ever since he moved up here from Danville, which was 25 years ago. And he's switched from Longwood he's over at Hampton Sydney now. So I'm certain he'll give you a good ear if necessary.
But, like I said, I think we're just trying to make sure that in trying to help stand up a new organization, that we try to look at it more with open eyes and not just, let's just create something else, throw some more money at it and expect to get something new. That we try to do this in a real deliberative process. And again, that's just where we come in to try to help out with this, not to be the one in control of it. Like I said, you would stand up your own board, all of those things. And as far as why some of them left, that's what Amelia's reasons are. From our first meeting, when we asked that question, some of the things that, and this came under what are not needing, unrealistic prospects, and not being able to get a shot at things. And I think Taylor already mentioned that, especially when you had localities that were so divergent of each other. It felt like they were never getting, any projects whatsoever. No return on investment was something that came up pretty common. And I'll admit it, the timing of this is when the last director was just going out and before they even really hired a new interim director. So one thing that was kind of on the table that I think was unsettled is the former director traveled a lot overseas, and that was not that favorable. I will admit, when VDP participated in our meeting, they said, while obviously you don't have to have someone traveling overseas all the time, there may be times when that would be necessary. For instance, if you have pulled in a prospect, there are some countries where it's just their culture. You have to meet with them to do this. But no, it's not necessary that it occur all the time. So that was some feedback we got from both. Some of it was just your typical stuff, infighting between localities, feeling like one's getting something better than the other, things like that. But I would agree with him that the number one thing was not getting a return on investment, and honestly, just not having enough commonalities in all of those localities.
I see this as totally dependent on the person you hire. This organization will flop unless you can get a great person. That's just my opinion.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that's one of the reasons why we're thinking through the concept of putting it under an umbrella, either through Longwood or through us, because there's some advantages to what we can offer for the position that may make it a little bit more tantalizing than some. Because I didn't realize this, a lot of regional development organizations are set up completely by themselves, so they don't have access to benefits like VRS or some other things. So this might entice someone who maybe is somewhere who's looking, to move. And they said sometimes too, especially if it's a brand new organization, you might entice someone who likes the idea of coming in and being able to start it from the ground up, that, they get to put their own tact on it as opposed to stepping into someone else's shoes. So that's been perceived. I do want to say Brian David, who's with Go Virginia, if you're not familiar with him, he has previous experience in regional development organizations. He was the director of it was Region 2000 at the time, Central Virginia regional organization years ago. So he has a long history of being involved in this. And as I mentioned, Liz Povar, that is a consultant who works with him, she actually used to work for VDP. So we felt like they have some real valuable input to helping us, move this along. So
I think another interesting exercise before it would be really viable is what are the things you can actually sell? So of the 7 counties, if there's nothing for sale and there's no will to do anything, again, you could bring in a racehorse salesperson and they can't sell something you don't have.
true. We
So
talked
we
about
really
that.
you need to do a feasibility or a market study of because if we're going to join, and we don't have anything to sell, we'd really have to look at that.
Mhm,
You have to look at that
mhm.
before you would start, I think.
Yeah, we talked about that, the fact that localities have something they need to bring to the table too. Like you said, a willingness to maybe improve the sites they have to bring them up,
Yeah.
to the ability to be able to sell, or talk about, maybe this organization, yes, it does that, but maybe its main focus isn't that. Maybe it's business retention and expansion of existing businesses you have, which may be much smaller. That you may want to think about what the mission of this organization is. It doesn't have to look exactly like every other RDO around the state. Make it work for what your rural localities need. So yes, I would agree that definitely came up in the conversation.
Now, when you say prepared sites, are you like a site that a building could be built on, or having a building, a shell building?
I think both. One of the things we talked about is VDP tasked, I believe it was Timmons, a couple of years ago to go around the site, and it was a site characterization study to find out where all of the sites were around the state and where they were at, and ability, when you hear the word shovel ready, where are they? So it was tier 1 through 5, Taylor. And they paid Timmons to go around the state and do this and put together a characterization study and let every locality know of what they had, where they were at. And then that gave you the ability to understand, well, if I'm at tier 1, I need to get to tier 5, then what is that going to cost me? So that's already been done. That's out there. So most localities already know where they stand. And then their next steps are we going to put some money forward, to improve our site? And like you said, not every locality necessarily has a site. I'd say most do, and they're in varying levels of where they are. So that's something most localities kind of already have, that the state's already paid for. It's just your next steps, what are you willing to do to move this forward? So yes, I would agree with that.
So it could be either or.
We have that study.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I can get my hands on it.
I think I have a copy that Johan sent me at the beginning of this. So if you want me to send you another copy. But I know all the counties got access, and I want to say this was a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago.
It's been a while.
Interesting to look at that.
Questions?
Anyone else? We appreciate you coming and providing the information. And, we'll mull this over, I guess. Take a look at that study and see where we are. All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We're down to Mr. Barber.
Do you know how to run this?
Not really.
Oh, my. All right, Holly.
Wait,
Wake up. Wake up, Holly. Just keep-
Okay. Yeah, the flash drive goes in the little tiny computer box thing.
Okay, that's in there.
Do you like this?
Right. When you plug that in, it should pop up on the screen, whatever files are on his drive.
It's it should be 02, 08, 22, and it should, not the BOS one, but the first one, yeah.
This one right here.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Okay, so once you open that, you're then going to click share at the bottom. And then you click whichever screen is showing the PowerPoint.
All right, so we've got the computer band on the bottom. Whoops.
Or I wonder if you.
Whoops.
What I normally do is just put the presentation on the desktop and then share screen and click it off the desktop, but that's not the way you have to do it.
Can you see what we got up here?
No.
Okay.
There is no share, Holly.
Holly, are you hosting the Zoom meeting? Did you start it?
Share. How about share?
Yeah.
Yeah, share. That's the one.
And then select what you want.
And share the one that you want?
Yep.
That maybe?
Yes.
There we go. Yep, I can see it.
How about that?
Good job, Taylor. You're going to put me in a
I
job.
just follow instructions. How do you want me to get rid of this?
Get rid of what? I don't see anything. I just see the presentation.
The picture, you got rid of it.
Okay,
That's good.
all right.
Yeah, it looks good.
You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like.
This is going over your strategic plan.
This,
And we're in the process of updating it,
uh-huh.
so we're working on it.
You want me to flip through
If
the,
you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can figure out.
Just step back, can you go back one?
Whoops.
Yeah, let's go forward.
I'll leave so before she clicks these.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Chairman, just a note on the previous discussion. I assisted Liz Povar and Brian in their update of the growth and diversification plan for Region 3. And part of my effort was to do an analysis of sites and buildings and in relationship to the tier study for all of the Region 3 there, and I can provide that report to you all.
Okay.
And most of the highest tier rating in this region is really the Prince Edward Industrial Park. That's a tier 4. And most all of the remaining sites in the region, I believe, are tier 2. Probably. Anyway, but I can provide that anyway. You know. There. This is sort of an update from our last meeting. We went through the current plan. It's been 8 years now since we did that. And we discussed about changes to the plan as we go through the plan, changes that you all had suggested. What I'd like to get as we go on is a discussion about a sort of an action agenda to sort of begin to implement it. So if you've got changes to what we did last time, that's great. We'll note those down, and then we'll also follow that up with sort of an action agenda. And what we need to know is, what is it that you want to do? Who's going to be doing it? And what's the time frame for getting it completed? Next one. And in the vision statement, really, there was only one change that we had in the vision statement, was to take out the vision of developing 3 industrial parks, and really just to be more generic about development of industrial and commercial land along the 360 corridor. So that was really the only change there. On to the next, again, next one. And then the goals, the first goal was development of industrial property. Again, we took out the 3 industrial parks and was more generic. We'll just flip through these fairly quickly on to the next. And with no change in those. So then we get to the objectives. The changes here were all made in red, which are the draft. And again, and then we added one with basically a partnership objective for building industrial and commercial land and buildings. So you would, as a possibility of partnering with the private sector in the development of those properties along the 360 corridor. Next one. All right, here was sort of action items suggested that we have talked about. Let me go there. Page 2 would be the action items for both of these 2 objectives would be to identify and evaluate suitable commercial properties along the 360 corridor for possible purchase, and engage consultants to assist in the suitability of those properties. That would be a specific objective. And then the next one would be to explore the potential acquisition of the VDOT building that we had talked about during that, and do an analysis of that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So there aren't many places in Amelia that had something on it that maybe would be for sale. But I kind of feel like it would be helpful to not only acquire new places that need developing, maybe timber, but I'm probably not the only one that was shocked at the cost of turning timber into like a site-ready place. And so I've thought a little bit over the last couple of months about maybe Amelia has something that needs to be leveled that is already kind of site ready, but maybe there's a building on it that needs to be leveled and maybe a shell building could be put on it. I don't know if that's a possibility, but sometimes when you drive through, hop off of 360, the highway, and hop onto Business 360, it doesn't scream, come and do business in Amelia always. It's not very pretty. And so I was wondering if maybe we wanted to even add language to this that develop and or improve. Like there's this little teeny tiny strip beside the Mexican restaurant. I don't even know if I should say this right now. That isn't very pretty. It's tiny. It doesn't scream do business here. It's not full. And so I just wonder if it wouldn't be worth investigating, taking something that's already site ready and putting a shell building on it, even if it means demolishing what's there. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Okay. That's a good thought. Some redevelopment, in other words, what you're describing is sort of a redevelopment process. In other words, is that you have some properties that are not in the best of condition. Our EDA in Portsmouth, that's really what we do. In other words, we buy properties that are not in the best condition. We basically tear down the existing building and do whatever remediation is needed in order to get it back into a marketable condition. What I would suggest is in discussion of sort of action items, under that first sort of bullet up there is oftentimes the process of going through that is to sort of do some sort of inventory of what's available and do an evaluation of that and then there. And that can be done by a sort of real estate broker that knows the market area. It could be done by someone that has knowledge of what's available in the real estate market, not necessarily broker, but and or it can be done by someone like Timmons, an engineering firm. Typically, once you've identified what the outline, you would do some sort of valuation as to what the price is versus what the redevelopment costs are, also what the market is. So they go through some sort of analysis of the individual properties and then get into negotiation with that, which is usually takes a year, 2 years to complete that kind of analysis. So that's there. Given that sort of background, as I would sort of add, what would you like to see as sort of an action item that you could pursue in, looking at identifying your real estate options and evaluating those?
If we're gonna do that, I think like you suggested, I think we need to do an assessment of what's already here, whether we can get a real estate person to do that or not. I'm not sure.
And I think, one of the things that we've heard from Taylor and Holly basically is that a lot of the quote industrial type of prospects that they have seen here have not required water and sewer. They have required the zoning, which is an important factor too. But again, you would need to go through a similar kind of process. Any
I
thoughts?
mean, an action item would be, I did, have a conversation. I mean, Adrian and I are always doing a lot of real estate in the county, and so we use Integrity exclusive. And I did have a conversation from my own personal friend, he keeps me updated on everything and does a fine job. I'm sure he would be happy to, put together we could have a real estate agent who once a month reports to the app and says, here's stuff that's available, so we know. Now, I know right now I'm not aware of anything that's really available for sale. Could the action item be that it doesn't have to be them? We could, maybe your son, I don't know who, but somebody could give us somebody that has access to the MLS listing. Could that be an action item? Should it be? I don't know.
Sometimes when we purchase land or property or whatever, wouldn't it sometimes be something that's not even necessarily on the market? It's not on the MLS. It would be something that we could approach somebody or maybe be approached before it even shows up. I mean, I would think,
Private sale is what you're saying.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So do you have any thoughts on how to make that an action item like that we would, I mean, if we say that we're going to look for private sales, somebody would have to, would that be that same real estate agent or who? Who would actually identify or how does the action happen?
Or I wonder if a study is done and sites are identified through a study and then you approach the property owner. I don't know how that works. I probably should shut up.
Oftentimes, EDAs or local governments will use a real estate professional because if the public is wanting to purchase it, prices tend to escalate. But it may not be a situation out here, I don't.
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you for being very nice, though.
Yeah.
Amelia, but you're right.
What I hear, and I can wordsmith this, but is basically you'd like to sort of explore the engagement of a real estate professional to identify the properties for you.
Yeah.
And then EDA. And then do you have a particular time frame that you'd like to do that in? Say in the next 4 months or something of that nature?
Say 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
Into that.
Well, in my opinion, we're in the process that we need to be looking and considering something now because we've run out. The well is dry.
Yeah.
Because we've got the option where we try to work with people that come in here that own land, which is good. I like that. But as far as another particular site, like we've been discussing over the last months, the cost of the utilities and everything is just driving a site for a small business or industrial type business out of sight. So it's got to be something that doesn't need a system water or sewage system.
You probably are looking at two different timeframes. You're probably looking at a short-term time frame whereby you're like you say, where you're probably not going to have the central utilities, but it would meet the need that Holly and Taylor have identified. And then you probably may be looking at a longer time frame. And when I said longer time frame, like 5 years plus, where you're looking at larger sites which have the potential for water and sewer service.
Right.
Things like that.
Guess I would add, that's a good idea, but I would caution us that we don't become a revitalization, like a campaign that they put funds in to revitalize something. I would say that we want to keep it specific to economic development, larger businesses, things that, of that type. That's just my opinion, but I would offer that opinion as an encouragement where we stick more to that. and less to
Right.
like that, revitalization. I don't know what the correct term is. There's a lot of programs and money for villages and little small towns to, make things look good.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you all feel about that?
I can't, been sitting here trying to think of something, some business that would want to come into Amelia in the courthouse area, for lack of a better name, that would require water and sewer that we actually want to put there. Something that's going to require water and sewer, you're probably going to want to put it in a park, or you're not going to want to put it in the village.
So I don't know that I'm proposing that we just turn into a revitalization anything, but I think that EDA doesn't have to just be industrial parks. I think we've done a great job, and I don't think we should ditch it. I mean, I think we should continue, but I think we can maybe do more than one thing. And,
On sites with already pre-existing utilities in it. That could potentially be for sale, or at least someone entertain an offer. Know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'm not sure I don't.
So we're all talking about identifying for lack of a better term, a virgin piece of property, leveling it, revitalizing, whatever you want to call it, rebuilding, box structure out there that's requiring all of this infrastructure to be put in, electric, sewer, water. Why not try to identify some of existing properties that have that and possibly approach that owner? Or I don't know, let's just use the 360 truck stop, for example. That's got everything that you'd want for a little business. What's to say we don't approach that owner and purchase that piece of property? Instead of being 360 truck stop, it's now, Amelia Business Park. I mean, yeah, you still have some cost to build the stuff that needs to go in there, but your infrastructure is there. Your electric, your sewer, your water, all that's already there. I mean, is that as potential? I mean, understand what I'm saying? We're talking about, what she was saying about leveling and starting from scratch. What about something that has those things already there that we can purchase, or at least have an owner that would entertain an offer on that piece of property? Does that make sense?
Well, that's the purpose for the identification.
Yeah.
In other words,
Yeah, I don't think we want to limit ourselves just to, finding something that's existent that just basically has to be cleared out. And maybe I think I'm saying the same thing as she is, talking about things that are already there that can be moved away and replaced with something else, something along that lines. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense or not at all, but
what I would say is that discussion that you basically have is the discussion that you want to have to your real estate agent.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoever's your broker. That's
Taylor, does the truck stop have water and sewer?
No.
I'd have to grab that as an example.
I think the one thing we run into, like down where you're at, you have a lot of availability, and here, there is so few buildings.
Well, our situation down where I'm at is totally different from what you
Yeah.
I would put that up. Yeah, and our market is totally different. What is, and what you are looking at here is rural, county, which there. So I'm.
There's probably only, a half a dozen buildings over 25,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Maybe there's, I don't know, but it's the amount of buildings we have
Yeah.
that just.
What you were talking about really is, small commercial and retail space, which would be a multi-tenant,
That's right.
typically there more in your downtown commercial area, versus, all property out on the 360.
An opportunity would have been the old grocery store, but they wanted $900,000 for that place. So really, we could have gone, what we're proposing to do, we could buy two sites, possibly have 250 acres for the cost of what that, now I don't know what it sold for. It might have been 700, 750.
But then if it costs $160,000 an acre to turn it into a site-ready piece of property, then, I mean, to me, that's daunting.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I would say if you divide the square footage and the acreage, like we can, as a county, we can pull some of this off. And I'm not against that. I just know that when you start talking real small sites, if you figure it out per acre, per square foot and all that, it ends up being significantly more than, something that we're proposing. So if there was, let's say there was a half a dozen buildings like that available and the market would dictate the price, you could go out and buy that building for 400 because that needed a fair amount of work. We would have put $1 million, $1.2 million in or more to get it there. But if there was a half a dozen available, then we'd have purchasing power, and it would be much more feasible. Again, I'm not opposed to it, but I think in practical, there's just not much availability there. We don't have many choices.
Those are the questions, basically, small site versus large site versus utilities. But that really is going through there. Now, the other aspect of your consideration when you're doing the evaluation is what's the market? And then the other one would be, are there potential developers that are within the greater things that you can partner with?
So we already have the study that says it's gonna cost us, extend the water and sewer to, 153, what, $35 million? That's just water and sewer. That's after you purchase it. And we don't have people knocking our door down, wanting to move out here that requires water and sewer.
Oh, really?
I think the discussion has been tremendous, really, because it sort of highlights what the issues are that you need to deal with. But I think the first part is sort of to get your professional real estate help in order to identify what their opportunities are and then do your evaluation of those opportunities.
I agree. And I think a multi-pronged approach is certainly what she's saying. I think that's the best. If we get a local person who knows the market really well.
You may be able to tell from their body language whether it's going to be worth it or not.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, from my own personal experience, we're constantly looking at all times.
Right.
And it's frustrating because there's nothing here to buy.
Right.
I would be buying and flipping myself, except there's nothing here. I mean, because I'm walking over there when I'm done saying, hey, is there anything come up? Because we're looking.
Yeah, good deal. All right. Okay, on the second sort of strategy, Taylor, what do we need to do in order to pursue that VDOT building?
General service.
Just request contact with General Services and ask for a report back next month.
Are you going to be sort of touching on that? Or?
I can, between Holly and myself, I'm sure we can make that contact.
on to the next one. Okay,
That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. We're okay.
I'm sorry. This one is basically, the goal for expansion of the water and sewer systems. And just flip to the next one. The only thing we did was change the broadband there. I really didn't put any action items on there for the EDA. And the reason I didn't is that typically this is a responsibility of the Board of Supervisors and Public Service Authority as such. So I don't, I'll be glad to add on that, but if not, if you're satisfied with that, we'll head on. Okay, the next one was your goal of providing a high quality workforce in your, there with the objective of increasing the training programs. And we discussed the future of the VOTEC Center at the last time. And I think there was some sentiment about trying to do an additional evaluation. There's been a number of years ago have gone by, and there has been very little progress in terms of transforming that facility because of the joint county arrangement of there. So the objective really was to do the exploration, and the suggestion from you all was to set up a committee of some sort to investigate what the possibilities might be for the restructure of the programs and the facilities out there. I guess what I would ask you all is what is the next steps? In other words, who forms the committee? Who's represented on the committee? And when would you like to have, a report back from them so that if there's actions that need to be taken, can be taken in a timely manner? So. Taylor, hit the next one if you would.
I got some ideas who needs to be at the table, but I don't have any idea how we're gonna pull it together. So many people, so many different people coming from different areas. We have a representative on the John Tyler board from Amelia. I'd like to get her at the table. And I have no idea about Nottaway what their structure is.
I mean, the counties and ANTC and how all that works. And so ANTC has its own board, and it has members from each school board and each school division superintendent. And so I would assume that you would very likely want not the Nottaway superintendent, the Amelia superintendent, and maybe a member of each school board that serves on that board as part of that. ANTC also has its own administrator, so I would think you would want to include the principal at ANTC.
And
A lot of people.
what's that?
A lot of people.
Yeah. Who would convene this? Who would be the convener of that discussion?
Well, Dennis isn't here, so let's nominate him.
There you go. You can have a rolling meeting.
If somebody needs to do it, I can do it, but I think that somebody else might be better. I think it might be more successful if someone else stepped up to do that. I'll do it if nobody else does, but.
Well, you know the players. Any of us know the players.
That might be a disadvantage.
That's what I'm trying to say. I can do that if you would like.
I mean, I'll be glad to jump in there and help you with that.
We do that. And sort of What would you see the time frame kind of thing is? When would you convene it, and sort of what would you like to see as sort of a timeframe for completion of that discussion?
So this will take forever, more than likely. It involves two counties, two school divisions, and its own little school. I guess I would like to know what the real goal is. So is the goal just to see if using ANTC for some type of career development or small business development would be possible? Or is the goal to use ANTC as some type of small business development hub or career type skills hub? Or is the goal to have ANTC provide these things? I mean, before I can tell you what a time frame would be, I would really want to know what everybody would like to see and what utilizing ANTC really looks like.
Well, I think before we decide that, we're gonna have to meet with these people and find out what they're willing to do or actually capable of doing,
Or even if they're interested.
or if they're interested in doing.
Yeah.
You know, if they're not interested,
So I go to
So what's
these people and say, hey, we'd like to use ANTC. What would you be willing to help us with? Or do I go to them and say, hey, we have this plan
Right.
and we'd like to use ANTC. Would you be willing to assist us?
what should we say, Marty?
That approach, the last approach sounds like you're kind of dictating. You already have planned what you want to do without their consideration. So I think, getting together and working out a plan together is the best approach.
We should maybe present the problems, like why do we need to do this?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what is the need? And then let them help with the how.
Right.
What I would suggest is a early convening of the group and just discuss with them about your concerns and your, sort of desires to have greater, workforce development efforts there. And then I would, basically after that introduction, I would proceed with the next, item that we had on there, which came up as sort of do some sort of a survey of your employer base here. And that gives you an idea of some of the needs that your local employers have in terms of their workforce development. And then once you've got that, go back to that group and say, hey, is there an opportunity here for us to work cooperatively to address these needs and possibly some broader needs throughout the region?
Do y'all think that we may be more successful if we reach out to Nottaway's EDA and ask what their needs are and go to ANTC as Amelia and Nottaway? And this is what our collaboratively, our county's needs are.
Probably get a
It might
approach.
be
Yeah,
more successful than.
No, I love that idea. And one of the, I'm thankful that you offered your help, but I'm just thinking here, this is a lion's task. I mean, it's a lot, it's a lot of work. Is it something that we could have Neil, sort of, like what you just said, if you put that all together and maybe consulted with them? I mean, it's just an idea, but that's a lot of work for you to commit to, both of you, if you're willing.
I mean, I'm willing to put it together and maybe send it to you to scrub.
Sure.
I can do.
But
that.
I want to be, cognizant, that's a lot of time. Maybe we could have him do some of the heavy lifting. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Yes.
I think we have to start with a discussion.
Another consideration I think that we all miss, I know sometimes I do, you gotta get more people involved. You gotta get your community base. Bring them in. Find out what they want.
Yep.
We plan because we think we know,
Well,
but they're the ones out there living it and they know.
we talked last time about surveying the business owners here in Amelia. So whether we do that individually, go see them or ask to come to a meeting or whatever and find out what they need.
Yeah.
And then go from there as far as the program.
Since this last meeting, I've spent a fair amount of time talking to a lot of them, trying to have lunches with them and just see what it is. And the thing that everybody come back to, they have no employees. You know, I spent an hour and a half with a pretty good local businessman, and he's at his wit's end. He can't hire anybody. It doesn't matter.
Is it because he can't pay? Like, what's the?
No, he pays well. Yeah, and it's a good environment.
We don't have anybody in the workforce.
Yeah, so I think, you know,
We got to train these people.
I hear that.
to answer that, you know, I think everybody, it's the same thing.
So say, is it a skill issue or is it just a?
Participation issue.
Right.
I think it's more participation. I mean, like right now, if I put if I needed a skilled CNC operator,
Can't find one.
no, I could run probably 1,500 ads. And, you know, there's just not, I don't know how we solve that problem, but
Yeah.
if, you know, we need to be thinking about the training and
That's where it is. Training.
Well, you got a phenomenon where so many people just dropped out.
Unemployment to everybody.
However, I missed that.
I say you got a situation we never had before where you got so many people just dropped out of the workforce.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of the skill is.
I didn't catch your comment, Louis.
I was just saying that problem, the lack of participation, I think it's just come about in the last couple of years because of COVID. I mean,
That's true.
the federal and state governments are kicking out all of these funds to help people, and it's, you know, it's more lucrative for people to not do something than actually get up and go to their job. And I think that's,
I actually saw that this has been a problem for years and years, and that our growth rate, you know, to maintain the population, we haven't done that for years and years. And so what happened with COVID is that so many people retired. And it's like, I don't know about y'all, but I don't know people that are work age that used to work and now they don't work. I mean, I'm sure it's there, but I don't know those people. And so I've seen where, like, even at the schools, we've had so many people retire in the last couple of years because they're just done.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that we have people that just quit to be at home. And anyway, so maybe that's part of it, but I think there's more to it.
I work for the state, so yeah, I've seen it too.
The comments that you just made reinforce two things. One is that to try to reinforce the need to adequately prepare your students coming out of high school for the positions that the employers need. That's one aspect. And then two is to adequately provide the opportunity for people that for either in underskilled positions or not in the workforce to enter proper positions there. So again, the analysis portion of what is it that you need, what are the demands, is central to both of those kind of issues. And you saw down both in Halifax and in Mecklenburg, you know, they have the facilities and the infrastructure by which they can, you know, funnel those folks through the training program.
You know much more about it than I do, but didn't I read somewhere in the Monitor or something that they did a survey from the kids and wanted to know what they wanted, the programs they wanted at the tech center, Go Tech Center? Well, that's the wrong way to go. You don't ask the kids what you want to do. You ask the job providers what
What
you need.
skills do you need?
But kids choose whether or not they participate in the program. So
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah, but
And you got to have something out there for the kids to look at.
Right.
You know, you just can't say you shouldn't go to this place.
Right.
You channel them where their interests are.
But-
I mean, education, I was in there.
One of the,
And you know, what you would like to see the child do. But it's ultimately the child's choice. Because if you put him in something that does not have an interest in, he's not going to excel.
Right, but maybe it could have been a two-sided survey.
Right.
You survey businesses locally, what do you need? And then from that, you survey.
I think I remember
Students.
correctly that one of the things they wanted to offer was babysitting. Okay,
Well, early childhood.
early, whatever. You're gonna open a daycare or something like that.
I think it sets you up probably to go into education. It doesn't give you all the skills, but it helps you later, I think is the goal.
To your point, a lot of the skilled things in, again, the Go Virginia has an initiative in this regard, is to begin that exploration down in the middle school rather than waiting there, because the earlier that you expose them the opportunities, the more receptive they are as they go there, as well as the parents.
One little thought, everybody had great ideas and it's really making me think, just thinking out loud, are we trying to reinvent a wheel here that's already in place? And do we honestly think that we can do this well? We really, like I hear all this and I'm like, oh my goodness, is this the best use of our time? Am I the only one? I see us doing it, but I don't, then when I hear all this, it's like, oh my word, should we just be promoting better avenues to John Tyler or like just making aware to the high school? Like, is there enough awareness?
In my mind, what I hear our businesses need isn't necessarily, it is more, I see the schools need more community engagement, and that is on the schools and on the community both, that maybe our students are graduating and they don't know that there are jobs available in the county. And so part of our school counselor's job is to help students when they graduate go to college, but also to help students when they graduate go to work. And so if there's work in the county that the schools could help, right? We could help the community by putting kids in those jobs, or even while they're still in school, maybe get them an internship so that when they graduate, they can have a job. Then in my mind, that's what we really need. That I see this could work, but somebody's got to teach it. And who does all that, and how is it funded? And if it's really going to be successful, you've really got to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy pumping up the program, getting the students, finding the instructors. And we have empty spots at the schools that we haven't been able to fill for a year and a half. So, I mean, I think it can work and I'm okay to do it, but.
I don't want to throw cold water on it, but I also don't want to, throw good energy.
I don't think we can, I don't think we can look at Mecklenburg and aspire to that. Because they would have nothing probably if Microsoft didn't come in and say, boom, here's this.
That's right.
And you got to train these kids and we're going to give them a $60,000-$70,000 job to start.
Okay, but Bob, you remember we went down to the Advanced Knowledge Center 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was prior to Microsoft.
I didn't go.
That was prior to Microsoft. The only thing that Microsoft has done has been the technology thing that was in the back. All of the other facilities were started prior to
Building
HVAC, the healthcare things, the lab, all of that, some of the pneumatics, the welding, all of that was started probably 12 years ago. So they had a really good, the technology stuff that they had.
So in Amelia, we have all of those programs available to high school students. Maybe not in Amelia, but those kids have access to all those programs. So if we're talking about this, what I hear is more adult ed, right? That's what I'm thinking when I hear this, like this would be adult ed versus. Yeah,
What if we like put that on the table and then just thought like what if there was ways we could raise awareness and, okay, so like I'm an employer and I will pay for, like right now I just hired a new person and I will pay for basically any of the courses that this person wants to take. Because I know that, and I've done that for 20 years. If an employee can do a online or something, and I think, I can't speak for them, but there's larger service-oriented businesses. And by the way, for every 5 electricians retiring, only 2 are taking their place. And that's the problem we're into. So, but most contractors will pay for the journeymans and, they'll put them in an evening or weekend course. So what if this is just spitballing, but what if we said that we're going to take $5,000 a year, we're going to break it up into scholarships, then, and, make, I participated in this before in a different county in PA. And we got a lot of awareness in the newspapers, everybody, and then the kids would compete for that. And, we had a job fair twice a year where the local businesses would, and we just raised the awareness of the jobs that were available, what the opportunities with the companies were, and gave them money. That's a lot easier. So again, I'm not here to throw cold. I love that idea. It's just, maybe we could do it an easier way.
I agree. And I think that would maybe be more beneficial to our businesses than offering adult ed courses at the tech center that may or may not be worth it and may or may not be, but also it might, I don't know, y'all are employers in the county, not me. And so I'm not sure exactly what type of employee you're looking for, but it might be helpful if maybe we can have a committee or establish something that kind of bridges that gap between employers in the county and the schools to hook up students that we feel would be a good fit. If you need a welder, maybe we have kids involved in a welding class at John Tyler. Maybe we can hook them up with you,
Yeah.
get them an internship. Maybe you train them up and when they graduate, they can have
Yeah.
an opportunity to have a job, maybe. Same with you and whatever type of
Right.
employee you would need. That way, it might be helpful to have a contact person, hey, I need so-and-so, I need this type of person. Do you know anybody? I don't know.
But what if we had this committee, the 2 of you have offered? Just put your heads together and, I don't know, just come up with some, I don't know,
So
ideas or.
And the goal would be to find employees for local businesses? Or
Well, if we're
the goal would be-
going to go down the path of getting, what we talked about, what he put in here for our workforce development, do we just stick with that? Help me out, Needy. I've introduced all kinds of rabbit trails here. You got to bring me back or we're in trouble. It's already, well,
I think the goals and objectives are pretty the same. In other words, you're like you said, from the EDA standpoint, the objective is really trying to getting the proper workforce to the employers. In other words, whether it comes from your incumbent workforce or the existing workers, or whether it comes from new entrances into the workforce, or whether it's coming from, people coming from outside the county. But I think the objective is the same. Sort of the tactics, how you get there. There's a whole different, several different.
There used to be a workforce development entity in Petersburg.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still there or not, but the
Yeah,
state has workforce development.
and Melanie might be a little bit more up on the workforce development efforts for the region. Are there any particular?
Workforce development centers. I think that falls under Virginia Employment Commission, has workforce development councils and centers. how that's, I'll admit, sometimes I get a little. How that works. But I don't know as well.
I think they have me.
Can you hit the next one there? One of the things that you had identified, next one, go on. That's pretty much the objectives. One of the things that you had, saw as sort of an issue here was the Southside Community College versus John Taylor Community College. And that really sort of leads into the discussion of who's responsible and how to meet the need. And in terms of if you're going to bring the player together, you had mentioned that we have a member on the John Tyler board from the county. And the question is there an opportunity to bring some of their training programs and locate them either into the facilities here? And then one of the questions they were going to demand, if we agree to have a satellite program here in the county, are there going to be enough participants? And so that is a question of, back to the employer needs and to the participants. So again, from there and how it's marketed and advertised. So right now, I think the question to you all is, how do you approach that discussion? In other words, who takes the lead? Who needs to be a part of that discussion as you go forward? What has been your sort of silence?
How many people do we have enrolled in programs at Johns Island now?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I can tell you that our enrollment has decreased significantly over the last couple of years. Very likely due to COVID. Last year, they only offered classes at nights and on the weekends and online, and kids didn't want to give up their nights and weekends, which I understand. And so, but prior to that, it was like 35 kids. So I think that was pretty successful.
Do they do much dual enrollment here?
We do dual enrollment. Not as much as Chesterfield, but we do have some dual enrollment courses. And some of those are through John Tyler. Some of them are done
And as for the numbers, it's thinking about maybe going the other direction. If we've got 40 kids enrolled in a class at John Tyler, maybe they would come out here and teach the class.
We don't have that many. And a lot of those classes that our students are enrolled in, they have all the equipment and everything in those classrooms, precision machining. They've got over $500,000 of equipment for that course over there. And so, but maybe eventually if enrollment increases, we could convince them to come out here.
Started out, it didn't seem to be harder than that as it's turned out to be.
Yeah, I would like to see, you said, how many people are in auto body technology, how many people enroll in cosmetology
That's all at ANTC.
Yeah, at ANTC. Is it feasible to have some sort of discussion with them about changing their course offerings? You only have 2 people sign up for culinary arts. I mean, what the opportunities of getting somebody in like, let's just say like the Steam Fitters Union to come in and fund a training center or something like that. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they'd be up for that conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
My wife the same way. She's in a trade industry, and you got 10,000 kids enrolled at JMU. 9,000 of them come out with a business degree, and there's nobody going into the trades anymore.
Right.
There's just nobody going into trades.
Yeah.
And I am desperately trying to convince my sons to do something in the trades because that's the next 6-figure a year job. Plain and
Exactly,
simple.
exactly.
I know a couple of years ago, several years ago, that one of the local HVAC people went to, I guess, employee day or whatever, career day or something. And he was offering, just taking the kid, if you're interested, I'll take you, I'll work you during the summer. And even if you don't like, you decide this is not for me, you should be able to pick up in the summer enough knowledge to be able to take care of your stuff at home. So you don't have to pay this guy or this guy or this guy.
I had that conversation this summer with a young man.
Zero.
He was with us.
Nobody signed up. Nobody wanted to do it. He was gonna pay him a good wage,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
So we gotta teach them that there's a value in that.
Yep.
And that comes through, I don't know, through the school, through the parent, or whomever.
Both. Yeah.
It has to come from them. Show them, you gotta show kids things.
Yep.
They don't believe.
Have to show them the plumber bill when they come.
Exactly.
It goes back to that exposure we talked about earlier, in other words, is that they need to have the internships, they need to have the relationships with the employers coming in and the summer employment opportunities. So once they have those opportunities, then they become interested in like that. And then if they don't have those things, they say, I really don't want to, get my hands dirty or.
We need to make work cool. We really do. That's what we gotta make it. This needs to be a cool thing. If we can do that, we'll win.
Let me know how you make that work out.
But
Well, just ask my kid. I think it's cool or not.
Yeah.
what the thought here on this was basically that you would basically do some sort of survey or determine what the needs were, and then figure out a single program to pilot here, whether it be HVAC, whether it be truck drivers that need to be there, or something related to forest products, or whatever it is. So a high demand skill there, and then sort of try to figure out, how best to do that, whether it's through John Tyler, whether it's through a relationship between John Tyler and Southside, and that, or there. So that was the thoughts in terms of the strategy. I'll, given the discussion we've had here, try to figure up some wording for you for some action agendas for to go along with that. That's it. And we'll come back. But is everybody agreeable to those? Okay.
So what are the action items that we're going to explore the potential restructure programs at ANTC? Because that's what's on here, but I didn't hear that.
Okay, what I hear is that you're going to begin that process. In other words, that's the ultimate objective, is to really to do something there. But the action items are going to be little steps in order to do that.
I think we're going to start with conversation
Okay.
between us and Nottaway, whether it's through their industrial development authority, whatever it is.
Okay.
And then we can decide how to approach it, maybe. Whether to go to the employers first before we go to the tech center about there. Find out what we need first.
Okay.
And like you said, it's going to be small steps, I think.
Okay.
I understand your discomfort in that we haven't laid it out quite yet, but we're
No, it's
going to
okay.
get there.
I just heard when we were talking about all this that maybe that's huge and maybe that might not work. And maybe we should figure out what our employers need before we go that way, but we can do it all at the same time.
Okay, good enough. Now, next slide, Taylor, we got there. Okay, really, there wasn't hardly any, there. Go ahead, next one. This was sort of the visionary economic development program we got. These are sort of some new elements that you all had identified as possibilities to and the first one is basically establishing what we call a BRE program, which is a business retention and expansion program. And typically that it revolves around some sort of visitation program and discussion with the employers. And that can be done on a formalized basis. It can be done with staff resources. It can be done with volunteers. It can be done with the EDA board as such. But you normally you would try to, as an example, set an objective of we're going to visit with all of our employees or 25, all of our employers or 25 employees or more every 2 years, as an example. And then that's a universe of, say, 75 employers, so we do 35 this year, and we do, 40 next year, something of that nature. So that would be sort of the objective would be to establish some sort of program of that nature. And then the action items is sort of how you would go about administering that effort. Is that something that still you'd like to see on your radar screen?
Has it ever been done where you held a meeting where you invite them, you make a little presentation, give time for comments, or do the people not talk then?
Sometimes if it's done on a sector basis, would bring in folks from, say, your manufacturing sector and, sit around the table and they'll share their common concerns, issues, like you were saying, we can't hire CRC things or, we've had to provide bonuses in order to get certain tradespeople here, and they begin to there, or DEQ is killing us on these environmental regulations. Those kind of discussions come up. That's usually on some sort of a focus group on a sector basis. That's done. Even a BRE program, something can be as simple as each year there is an existing business recognition week, having some sort of an event. Usually it's a joint event with the Board of Supervisors where you recognize the businesses in the community, sort of say, we're here to support you. Most of the, economic development programs have something along that line. Chesterfield County has a pretty robust existing business retention program. Probably the best one in the state is Frederick County and Winchester. They've been doing it for a number of years, and they've got it a pretty well structured.
I personally love the idea. I think, we exist here to create economic development. Why wouldn't we be holding a hand out to our business owners?
Yep.
Good deal. The next one was sort of explore the establishment of a business development facility. And again, this probably would be in connection with the Longwood Small Business Development Center. With that?
I was just getting ready to say, isn't that something that an establishment of an RDO could possibly take on as their responsibilities? If you're talking about finding someone to be employed by the RDO, for lack of a better term. Wouldn't that be kind of their marching orders to establish those three types of programs? Because I know the resources, am I thinking this through right?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, those were things I mentioned, talked about. Like I
Yeah.
said, the fact that most localities don't have enough staff to do all of this. And an RDO, like you said, that could be something. I don't think currently, and Joe would have to correct me, because again, I'm not intricately involved in EDA or prior ones. I don't think there's been a whole lot of focus recently or in the past on business retention and expansion. There's been a whole lot more focus on and large business or businesses to the area that aren't currently here. That's been more the focus.
The Virginia Growth Line VTA, when they were originally set up, sort of helped organize them initially. And it was primarily business recruitment, as you mentioned, and as being sort of the central point of contact for the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, the EDA. So all project referrals would go to the regional organization.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't mention, is one of the things we heard from Steve Murray with VEDP was if you're not a part of a recognized regional economic development organization, you don't have access to VEDP or Prospect. I know that you do have contact with VEDP, but there's a certain protocol that they have, and you don't have that direct contact that you normally would unless you're part. So they really push the idea. In fact, what we try to do is have me just even sit in on their monthly meetings that they have chats about what's going on, and they wouldn't even allow that. They said, no, you're not with, and I mean, I appreciate that. You're not part of a recognized regional. So that's something you're missing out on, and any locality that's not part of one misses out on. But that's just one aspect of something that's done.
And if you recall, most all, when we were down in Halifax, the question went to Christie is, where does your referral come from? Like that. She basically said they all came from the Southern Virginia Alliance from VEDP. So they go from VEDP to there.
You know, let me interrupt you for a second. Kelly, we have about 10 minutes to 12. Do we need that minute?
I don't think so. I think you're getting along so well here. I would let Mr. Barber do that.
All right.
Whenever the other board gets here, you could pause and eat and maybe start the meeting back up in a closed session with
All
them.
right.
Yeah, she won't be able to stay.
I can't
So do we need to vote?
Stay until 1:30. Or
You want to do the
whenever.
closed session now, and then we can start back up?
I'm sorry.
That would be fine.
I mean,
I mean, I don't need to be here for close. It's okay. I just
All right.
stay.
All right. Then if that's what we want to do, if we could get a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A3, that would be discussion of potential real estate purchase matters.
Right.
Did we get that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're now
All
in.
right, Taylor, stop the recording
All right.
and stop sharing screen. So up at the top where it's kind of orange, if you hover over it, it'll say like stop sharing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And now, do you want me to go ahead and share my stuff? Are y'all ready?
Yeah, so you want me to hit stop recording?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pause it. And
Yeah.
so-
So just make sure you start the recording back up.
The recording's back on.
Here we go. You're good to go then.
So we'll need to certify that the only issues described or talked about during the session were the real estate 3711-A3 that we went into closed session for.
I certify.
Certified.
I certify.
I as well.
Yep.
That's it. Okay. All right. So that's it for that. That was everybody certified. And now, Mr. Chairman, if you'd be so kind as to call for a pause in the meeting, or we're not adjourn the meeting, but we would like to, Holly, help me, what's the word?
While you're sitting, no,
I guess you just want to continue it to later, right?
Continuation.
Okay, we'll continue the meeting in an hour or,
my segment of it is gonna take about 5 minutes.
okay,
Well, because I'm right at the wrap up stage.
okay. So you're talking about for this group?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So then before we decide to not adjourn, but recess, there we go.
Took me a minute.
Instead of taking a 30-minute recess at this point in time to eat, we will go ahead and finish this part of the meeting up and then we'll be ready. And while y'all are doing that, I'll ask Mary Beth to come in here and set some of the food up and bring the board members in. Okay, great.
Can I go?
Yeah, I gotta roll. There's a budget presentation Friday and it all changed last night at 5, so I gotta roll.
Last thing I had on there is at the last meeting, we talked about possibility of doing a special planning effort for agricultural forestry industry.
Yeah.
Okay, what I did was provide you background material on what we call aphid planning grant. The Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services provides funding for planning work related to agriculture, forestry, industrial development activities. That's short, aphid for short. So it's a matching grant program where 50% of the match can be in kind. So if you wanted to put that on your agenda for this upcoming year, you would potentially apply for an aphid grant, and you would put out an RFP for like a consultant to do 6-month study or on-year study. And what that would do is convene your agriculture and forest products industries, typically in an advisory group, and you have several meetings with them over a several month period of time to determine how best you could help facilitate, the county could help facilitate the expansion of those industries. And so the maximum grant that they provide is $30,000, is that right? 20,000. So your cash exposure would be $20,000 to match it. Maximum, if you did any in-kind contributions, that would be extra. So.
So we can discuss that a little later, I mean, the next meeting. Or agree with Jan.
Okay, I'll include it in the next draft, come back next month, and then we can either go forward to there. So that's.
Just a little time to digest. Yeah. So we're gonna close the meeting now?
We're going to recess, I think. Recess for lunch and then we'll start back up with the training session.
Okay. Need a motion to recess? I'll make a motion to recess.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? We're recessed.
Zoom recording, there we are.
Now we need a motion to come out of recess. Or restart the meeting.
That'd be fine.
I'll make that motion. A second, we got a second.
Second.
Marty, thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. As I think both of you know now, my name is Bob Smith. I'm fairly new to the county. I've only been here about almost 15 years. Elder was tied up with his business last couple of days. Volunteered to give y'all a little thumbnail sketch of what we do. As you can see, we're a 7-member board authority. We're different from the other appointments that you guys make that are just advisory. We actually are, we're independent, we are autonomous. That doesn't mean that we're going to do things that are crazy and out there that's really going to make you mad. We're going to inform you before we pull the trigger on anything. But we are autonomous. And I think I've on that sheet of paper, maybe not. My printer ran out of ink last night before I get this printed up, so, state code, establishes the authority. It is independent or industrial or economic. 15-2-4904, it lays out it, how many people and all that stuff. We've got 7 members, 4 are longtime business owners. Lance had to leave for a work meeting. He's, his expertise is IT, he works for the state. Carly, who, couldn't stay, she works for the school. She's the finance director in charge of nutrition. And I have, about 15 years experience in local government. I had 30 years in heavy industry. So I think we got a good cross section of people for knowing what's going on in the county and what's needed in the county and how to maybe go about getting things done. One thing I can say about everybody here is that we want to see Amelia, the best for Amelia. We want to get the best for Amelia. And we want to try to keep the growth along the Route 360 corridor. We don't want to spread things out here and there. Keep it right on the corridor, which only makes sense to me. Got Neil here. We've asked him to help us revitalize the economic, comprehensive plan that we've used. The old one was adopted in 2013, and it's a pretty good plan because it sold out the park. So now we just updated a little bit, and we hope to. Next one will take us 10 to 15 years, and for any expansion. And he'll be talking about that more in a few minutes. We have some things we've been talking about doing. And the last meeting, we actually came up with some action steps and started things in progress. We're still trying to identify a suitable land for expansion of the one end. For expansion of the park and realizing that from start to finish, it's going to take it could take between 6 and 12 months to get everything done. Negotiating, doing all our due diligence, all the paperwork, everything you need to do. So it's not going to be a really quick process. It'd be quicker, but don't count on it. 6 to 12 months. We started last time talking about the technical center out here. We want to survey, we started thinking we wanted to survey our business owners about what kind of people they needed to hire. All you hear on TV and around from the business people is you can't find anybody to hire. They got all these jobs and nobody to hire. So as we continued our discussion today, it's a bigger nut than we thought it was. We've come up with a plan. We're going to see if we can't. The unique situation is that the tech center is shared between Nottaway and Amelia, and the funding is year to year. So that to me says that we're really not sure the long-term, the longevity of it. So we're thinking about maybe we can work with Nottaway, see what their people need, get together and come up with the VOTEC people to actually teach the skills that our business people are looking for. We don't think it's our place to sit here and say, well, we think you need this, or we think you need that. We'll let them tell us what they need. That's going to be a long and involved process also.
That's all set up.
One of the things we also talked about, we want to encourage our local businesses to grow. And we was kicking around the idea that some of these people need a space, an office that they can't afford to go out and get on their own. Something with internet, phone, fax, place to interview. The Handle building, whatever y'all do with that, that may be a place. And we learned today that there may be another couple of avenues we can look. So those are just some of the things we're contemplating. And a lot of these things, like I said, we didn't have any idea when we first started talking about the VOTEC and the workforce training. It was going to be a big, not a problem, but a multifaceted opportunity. How about that? So, if y'all have any questions for us, we'd be glad to entertain them. And then we're going to turn it over to Neil, and he's going to take you through our strategic plan.
Taylor, can you pull up
The other,
yeah,
okay.
it's already, the thumb drive is in there. Then we'll go through.
You want to come up here a little closer, maybe where all of y'all could see? That you can see there.
It won't get on you.
Got,
Mm.
people the slide here, so. You like me, I couldn't see it.
See.
Sir? Yeah, with this fine lady. Yeah. Next slide, go ahead. I just wanted to start off the presentation is that, economic development basics, really, economic development programs are based on 4 concepts of what businesses need. Every business needs a place to do business. They need workers. They need a modest cost of doing business there. And they need the knowledge and skills to operate the business. Every economic development program is based around one or more of those 4 elements. So as we go forward, that's just fundamental. A lot of economic development programs provide typically business recruitment is often they're recruiting new businesses to come into there. Again, those 4 elements have apply. You got to have place to do business. You know, you got to have a modest cost of there, and you need to have workforce for it. Business, what we call business retention and expansion. That's to support your existing businesses. Grow your own is trying to develop new businesses from within. Usually, that's a small business development program. Workforce development efforts to provide the workers that your employers need. Tourism is often there. You have sometimes sector initiatives, agriculture, forestry, et cetera. But these are common elements that are associated with any economic development program. That's the strategic plan that was done back in 2013, finished in 2000, started in 2012. But it was about a 6 to 8 month process and was very extensive, involved monthly meetings with the EDA and a tour at that time of Mecklenburg and Halifax County to look at some of the
And those are considered rural, relatively rural counties that have spent a lot of time and effort over the years to build their county development infrastructure. The current revision of their community plan, we decided to go ahead and take another trip down to those two localities and see what has changed and what has modified. That trip occurred back in December. Quite the learning experience there. And that's just a slide. Based upon an analysis of the economy, next one there, and the experience of other things back in 2012, we put together the vision statement. You see here, it's relatively lofty in a statement, and I'll just go ahead and read it there. With the greatly expanded commercial and industrial base, our citizens no longer commute to neighboring communities to find quality employment. In fact, our county, in partnership with the private sector, has been successful in building 3 industrial parks with businesses using state-of-the-art technology. Our youth now have the option of staying at home and returning home to quality job opportunities right here in Amelia County. Next slide there. The expanded commercial industrial base has allowed the tax rates to remain among the lowest in the state. Concentration of new development along the major transportation corridors has allowed the county to remain rural and farmers to maintain their farms and agriculture. That vision statement pretty much holds true today. The EDA has made a slight modification to that to reflect another industrial parks, broader commercial and real estate industrial development along the corridor. Bob mentioned the focus is still development along the 360 corridor, trying to achieve that vision. The goals that were established revolve around those 4 basics that I talked about before: to develop marketable commercial industrial land along the 360 corridor, to expand your utility systems to support your real estate development. Next one, to provide the workers that are necessary for your current and future employers, and so provide high quality workforce training programs for both youth and adults. And, the next one goal was to maintain an active and visionary economic development program, as well as a pro-business business climate. The objective to achieve those goals were basically to, at that time, to ensure the marketability of your industrial park, which has now been totally sold out. So you have very little product to sell. To purchase additional land for business and commercial development, that's still at the forefront of the EDA today. Identify and hire, those there. Next slide. These also relate to marketable industrial properties, identify and acquire industrial and strategic locations, and then identify your marketable industrial property elsewhere. I think what we have done is pretty much decided to concentrate more on the 360 corridor than select properties elsewhere in the county. So that more of the focus is going to be on 360 corridor. Next slide. Again, to systematically plan for the expansion of your utility system in the county to support your economic base there. I know that's a long-term objective there. And what we've also included within that is the notion of that broadband is important to success of any business these days. So we've included on our utilities and support the broadband. Next one would be here, what Bob was talking about also is back in 2013, we were concerned about the future of the VOTEC Center and the possible restructure of the facilities and the programs to be to the needs of your employers today and what they will be in the future. At that time, back in 2013, the Center for the Commonwealth Center for Advanced Manufacturing had been ramped up over in Prince George community, and we were hopeful that there would be a closer tie with that and try to bring some of the state-of-the-art manufacturing training programs to the county. That hasn't worked out as hoped, but we still have the desire to try to bring in training programs that are a need and within the current employer base. What are those skills, particularly advanced skills, that are necessary to support existing employers? So that's it's still a key issue for the EDA, but not related to the CCAM. The next one was the sustained and active and visionary economic development program. Create a staff economic development function with the county, provide a periodic update to the strategic plan, which we're in process now. We hope to have that finished within the next 2 months. And then prepare and implement an annual economic development marketing and work program. The current planning process we're going through, while not having a marketing plan, should have an annual action-oriented items that will be outlined as a part of the plan. And lastly, is maintain a proactive business climate. We had several things there. Develop a set of incentive programs. Maintain the fast track approach to permitting that you currently have. That still is in our thinking, is to sort of maintain that in competitive pricing of land. Since you've already sold that out, we're looking at possible acquisition of additional properties, and then maintain the low cost environment. So that was sort of the foundation of the plan. While the foundations are still current today, we're just doing some modifications and updates to it. Yeah. Any questions at all?
On your 360 corridor, is majority of your hopes and wishes to the east of the courthouse or to the west? That way on 360 or that?
Either way,
Either way.
whatever is available.
Okay.
Not taking anything off the table.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Probably the reason that thing down at Prince George didn't morph into what we were looking for is because Rolls Royce pulled out. Took a big chunk of jobs, high-tech jobs.
I think the tech stuff is pretty sure. I'll always thought that. JP's work ethics.
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Well, with the economic climate of the country right now in general, that, from what you see on the news, if you want to believe all of it, that, they're not too enthused on businesses in our country anymore anyway. I mean, they're pushing everything overseas. So, I mean, you know, the business climate is, it's hard to see some of these major companies wanting to expand when they got to deal with all the red tape they got to go through in Washington DC.
Well, they was telling us at our meeting today that for every 5 electricians that retire, being replaced by 2. Carly was telling us that it's hard to get kids to go into the trades. Everybody wants to go to college.
Well, get a job at McDonald's.
Yeah,
See, that's what they've been preached to forever and
Yeah.
ever and ever.
Well,
exactly.
the trades are probably the new horizon for 6-figure payouts, right?
Well, I mean, Mike Rowe off of, on TV, the Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
He went to Congress or whatever and said, right now, a welder or pipe fitter, this was when the Keystone Pipeline
That's right.
was going that not no more,
Yeah.
which is beyond reasoning why it's not. They were making 2 to 3 years experience, 6 digits a year.
Right.
And they said there's kids up here, 25 years old, is done paid for $250,000 house. That was paid it. That money, and all they needed was trade schools.
That's right.
It goes back to work there.
We had it right. We had it right there in my family. I went to college. My brother was a machinist.
Not everybody's meant for college.
That's right.
That's the key.
Go to your local fast food and see how many college kids is in there serving hamburgers. Quite a few.
Couple of things that changes in the economy, the offshoring that you mentioned has been occurring for a number of years. But we're seeing in the last few years, and it's accelerated with the pandemic, that there is more onshoring bringing back into this country over the last. So that has provided some additional opportunity. The other change that we talked about and it's been in the economy is the workforce. And since the pandemic, we've had people resigning from the workforce and staying out of the workforce for a variety of different reasons. And with a lot of retirements, which we just mentioned, that every employer just about is having difficulty, whether it's high-tech employment, whether it be the trade, the skilled employment, or whether it be, service workers in retail there. So in terms of economic development, one of the toppest selection criteria for businesses these days is the workforce availability.
Well, a friend of mine who has a small truck line, trying to find truck drivers, because I drove truck for 20-some years for a major carrier in Richmond, and he always come to me, how do I find good qualified drivers? He said, when I get a good guy driving a truck, he said, I had some of them come to me and says, I love working for you. I like driving a truck, but I can make $47,000 a year sitting at home, letting the government take care of me. Why should I work? So you're an idiot if you work. If you know how to get $47,000. And I've heard that several instances. So, finding help, you fighting the government.
Yep.
There's nothing we can do about it, except one thing, turn the limits and get them all out of there.
To work on our trade school, right? That would be what we could do. I don't know.
Anything else?
I would just say, you're always welcome to stop by.
Yep.
We do have to, even though we're autonomous, we do have to partner together to get things done. You're welcome at our meetings anytime.
And like I said, we're gonna notify you before we pull the trigger on any deal. You won't read about it from our paper.
I'd just like to say that, we talk about the industrial park, 360 being the main artery of growth through the county, which it should be, and any other main road like 153 or whatnot. But, when I came on this committee years ago, I'm a homegrown business. And one thing I stress, and I think we still as a committee are like this, we will support and try to help homegrown businesses. So often, they got to start somewhere. So they grow and then they have to move somewhere else. But the homegrown businesses, if you look around this county, probably, I'm gonna just pull a number out there, half of the people that are functioning and running some sort of business, whether it's a service industry or what, started out as a homegrown business.
Yeah. Out of the back of their truck, right, Robert?
Out of the back of the truck.
I think that's background in this country anyway.
Yeah, we try not to ever forget that.
I also would add just to he said about the 360, I feel like being a part of this group, we're fiscally responsible too. Everybody has the same, we want to manage the, money that we have very responsibly. Something I sense from everyone, which is nice.
Well, again, I want to thank you for being here. I was sincere when I said it's a much different atmosphere from what we'd experienced before. Thank you. Come back anytime. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do.
That it?
Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got on the agenda.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
All in favor of adjourning, please, thank you.